So I decided to start running Windows 7 32-bit in Linux so I could use some old software that isn't available in Linux, mostly about audio, mostly involving audio production. And also I can use some of my audio tools in Linux so I could take the Linux sound and go into the Windows emulation and do DSP, digital signal processing operations on the sound from the motherboard before it goes out to my amplifier. And I've been thinking about other things I can do with the computer, and one of the other spin-offs was I could then also use the Windows burning software, in theory, use the Windows burning software to burn disks in Linux. And what happens is, since Linux is in its own world, I found the most convenient way to share files or work on files between two different operating systems is with Windows file shares. So the host computer would share files, and then the guest computer, the simulated computer or the virtualized computer, would then access the Windows shares, and you could work on whatever you need to work on that way. So also in Windows 10, my version of Nero is observed as not necessarily working properly anymore. So I used to run Windows 7 on another computer into the network, do this. It's actually kind of similar to this, except there isn't an actual network lag, but there will be a caching time. So when it comes to virtualizing computers, it's pretty straightforward to run another operating system and have like a basic connection to your computer. But what gets harder to do is when you want to share, give specific cards to the virtual computer, and you wind up with much better 3D gaming ability if you have like certain graphic cards that will totally access it. But trouble is, when you start giving hardware to the virtual computer, you lose it from your main computer, and you might potentially always lose it. So you have to either go back and forth between them, or just saying the virtual one will always have this hardware and the real one will always have this hardware. So in this case, my motherboard, we're kind of stuck with what how your motherboard is set up into groups. So you wind up with these groups that have to all go together. They have to be either yours or the virtual computer's property. So in this case, it was a little bit tedious, but it basically got what I needed. I lost my my Ethernet controller, and I can't do off-the-air recording when the virtual machine's on. Those things can't be done, but I did get a USB Ethernet connector, which basically replaces the thing that didn't work previously. Turned out, fortunately for me, I have a lot of SATA ports, and one of them is on the CPU, or two of them are on the CPU, and the rest of them are on the motherboard, and the ones on the motherboard have to go when I'm doing this sharing the hardware. So it turned out that the CD-ROM was always hooked into the other ones because there wasn't enough slots for me to put the CD-ROM there, and I argued that I could still get basic functionality through the VM because I could use the VM to pipe it back to the original computer now. So here is the disk I'm going to burn. In this case, it's a CDR. Traditionally, my own personal kind of workings, I put them on CDRs. I argue that they're maybe a little bit more physically stable than a DVD-R. I also use DVD-Rs for other applications. So let's put this in here. So this will be my first test of, I should explain also, over here you see what I've done is I've shared various devices. So what have I shared? To tell me? Controller, SATA, oh no, these are the onboard. These are the devices I've shared here. So device 0501, that's my sound card, the sound card shared, which is an Auto G2. This is, let's see, I believe, one's a USB and the other's a SATA. So the motherboard SATA and the motherboard USB. Fortunately, there's another USB again that has a hub of mine that has a whole bunch of devices, including this webcam, the one that's connected to my host. So we'll just go over here into the preview window. We'll go full screen. Okay. So I've set it up here as a UDF CD-ROM. It's going to burn and verify, and it's reading off of my local drive as if it were a network share. It's loaded, yes, anyway, here we go. Burn. Okay, so it wants to cache as if it's like connected to a network. It thinks it's going to be like a network dropout, so it's caching some files to the local system at this point. Okay, so it started. Seems like I can only be at 40x, which is kind of fast, but maybe if I put a disk in, it could have changed, but I guess I should have tried that, but it's going to go really fast. It's doing a lead in. Okay, it's ready to track. It's not going to take too long. Okay, well that was pretty quick. Let's see if it verified. Okay, so it says that data verification completed successfully and popped out the disk. Let's get out of here. I'm going to shut down the virtual machine. Okay, so I have a procedure where I can get back my original system configuration. And you have to be very careful because if you don't follow the procedure, the computer will crash. Okay, so the guest is not running. Okay, guest is not running. Turn that off. And I'll go over here and I will say end when 7. That, and that will do the procedure. It's a shell script that does some changes. So when that ends, okay, so now the computer's back to the original configuration. So I'll go here, run media. Yeah, so here's the disk. Oops, I should have burned a second disk because I can set it up again anyway. But okay, so now I'm going to diff the U files on the CD to the U files on the hard disk, which are here. And I need to do a diff recursive, diff R. And if I get nothing, if nothing is reported to me, then the two of them would be identical, which I'm expecting. Honestly, it looked like it was going pretty well. So, you know, with your computer, you always want to make sure that there's never a corruption, a data corruption, and you can test that with memtest and tools like memtest. And you don't, if you ever see like crashing on your computer, that's probably a warning sign that you've got data corruptions. But you know, on a computer that's working the way it should be working, you should be able to burn 9 gigs of data and have it no diff errors or no verification errors between them. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, isn't so I guess, however, it compared the two as individual files wasn't the same as it's whatever it was using in the burning program, but as you can see, it reported no differences. So at least in that case, I backed up a CD's worth of information, something like 20,000 files without any binary differences in those files. So here's my procedure to reactivating the virtual machine. In this case, I'm allocating various hardware. Okay, I located it, I suppose. Do this very quickly. Go over here to where is the virtual manager, open, run. Okay, at this point, if I didn't allocate the hardware to the device, half it would have been pulled in, half it not, it would have created it would have crashed the system because of some weird error. So I'll go here. Okay.